guys, good morning. The flower behind me that you can see is the Mexican torch sunflower. Now, I did not know about this flower until last year. I may have seen it in passing, but never really gave it a second thought. And quick story behind it is, I went to a daylily farm to buy a bunch of bare root daylilies last year. And the woman had a bunch of Mexican sunflowers, and it didn't look like anything. It just looked like a little starter plant. And I happened to be there with my neighbor who said, "Oh, Leigh, you have to buy one of these Mexican sunflowers. The hummingbirds and the butterflies love it." Well, that was all I needed to hear. Now, this woman charged $10 for one tiny plant. And all of my, inner bells and whistles went off, and I said, okay, if I buy this one plant for $10, I'll be able to harvest the seed. Now, I didn't know that this was something that was readily available from other stores. So, sometimes you kind of bump into a flower that opens up a whole new world to you. It's just this magical discovery every time you fall in love with a new flower. Now, I didn't know what to expect. All I knew was that my neighbor said they grow big and bushy and they're very bright and you have to experience it. Well, that really wasn't the explanation of just how magical this flower actually is. So, I promptly brought it home and I hoped for the best, and I planted it right into the ground behind me here by the pond. And we will be inserting footage here of a hummingbird and some butterflies that came to visit last year. So through growing that one flower for $10, I harvested a bunch of seeds from it. I'm not sure if I did a video about how to harvest the seed. I can't remember last year already, but I will do a video this year of harvesting Mexican sunflower seeds. Now, it is definitely cheaper for you to go and buy an entire pack. I bought this last year in the sale for botanical interest, and then this year I saw it from Furry and Morse and Lowe's, and I'm certain Burpee has it. I think even Baker Creek has it. You can really get torch Mexican sunflower or Tithonia anywhere. So this packet was $2.69, but there was some sale. I honestly can't remember what I paid for it, and I thought to myself, I saw it during the sale where I promptly go and I order tons of varieties so I can start into a new flower adventure every year, not knowing what to expect. And I thought, let me get this as backup in case the seeds that I harvested from the sunflower from the farm are not viable. At least I'll know I'll have some, backup, which hopefully was harvested at the prime time, which, will make it viable for germination. Because some seeds, as I have mentioned in the sweet pea video that I did, and I can attach that for you in case you didn't see it, sometimes when seeds are harvested too early, before a flower is dried properly, you will see seeds, but they may not be viable because they just have to go through a certain drying process. So you can end up with a whole packet or an envelope of seeds that you harvested, and none of them will work. This has happened to me with apricot lemonade cosmos many times. So this is what you want to look for in variety. Now, botanical interest in Baker Creek do often cost a little bit more than some of the big box stores and what they carry, like Burpee or Furry and Morse. And now if you go to Walmart and buy a Furry and Morse seed, it will be cheaper, but it will have less seed. So you'll spend more at Lowe's for the same exact thing in a slightly different label. It might have a few more seeds and it'll be a few cents more. So I find these vendors to be, very reliable. I love botanical interest in Baker Creek. They're my two top seed sources that I buy from. So anyway, if you buy a packet from either of those and you buy it once you learn how to harvest seed, you will have this flower in your garden forever, or for as long as you choose to grow it, because every year it gives you a new opportunity to harvest more seed, and then you'll realize you're not spending money on seeds anymore because you harvested your own. So I'm going to talk to you about a few of the qualities of this flower and why I think you should grow it. So let's turn you around and have a closer look at Tithonia Mexican sunflower torch. What an amazing flower. I started all of these flowers that I'm about to show you in pots about 6 to 8 weeks prior to our last frost date is what is really recommended. And if you want to plant them outside and you want to direct sow them because you don't have room for starter plants, you can put this seed into a sunny area you know, after your last frost or when your ground is workable. Sometimes we have frost, but the ground is already thawed, and you know, I want you to imagine how these things self-sow and how prolifically they grow, because these guys will grow as volunteers. So, you know, it's always recommended 1 to 2 weeks after last frost, or until your ground is workable and you're not going to have another big deep freeze or snowstorm. But you'll learn, you know, that sometimes a flower seed can self-sow and it lives through ice and winter, and you wonder, well, the packet said to sow it after all chance of frost, but this flower direct sowed its seed the year before and it made it through winter. Why do I have to wait until after last frost? It's usually because your ground hasn't thawed yet. So when they overwinter because they self-sowed, it's just a different growing process for the flower itself. So I want you to keep that in mind. A lot of times it's about soil and whether or not you can actually work it in. Wow. Now, I keep seeing a hummingbird off in the distance. Hopefully it's a ruby throat. Oh, it's just magical. They love the Mexican sunflower, which is why I have it planted right by my kitchen sink. So, in the window. So now I'm looking out and I'm seeing the butterflies and the hummingbirds come visit this plant right at my window. And I don't need a hummingbird feeder, which, you know, I had talked about this many times. So many people buy them and make the personal commitment that they're going to keep it clean and they're going to refill it. And you can buy fancy nectars, or they tell you to just make a simple syrup of pure cane sugar and water, and then you let it cool and you fill it in to the hummingbird feeders. But they're so bad for the poor little hummingbirds. All of that sugar affects their metabolism in a different way than natural nectars do. And they love the Mexican sunflowers. And I want you to think that the hummingbirds travel from Mexico and South America to get here every year. So they love things like Mexican torch sunflower and tropical plants that are usually annuals up here. So we try to offer them as much as we can to attract them on a natural level. This is what they want. They really do not want a feeder full of sugar. That's for us as viewers when we attract birds using those things. Instead, you guys, offer flowers, because the sugar containers get filled with bacteria that we can't see, but it affects their metabolism. It causes the hummingbirds to have eggs with very thin shells, and the next generation of bird never happens because their eggs crack and the baby birds they're not a viable egg anymore. So anyway, consider Mexican sunflower as an option to grow near your back window, or in a place where your front window, any place where you sit in the garden. Now I want to talk to you about why I grew these in pots, why I started some from seed indoors, and why I direct sowed some of them. So let's go take a little tour through the garden and see how they're growing in different ways. So exciting. So I'm starting at the big pot. I bought the pot from Costco this year. And this is basically a hummingbird and butterfly garden. This is the best growing flower out of all of the seeds that I started 6 to 8 weeks, you know, while I was sowing everything else, all of my fruit and veg and all of my flowers at the same time. I started 6 of them, and then I went back and started 6 more because they were growing so easily once I put the seeds into the soil. This plant in particular seems to really love being in a pot. Now, if you'll notice, I did give it a center stake. This is a 6-foot stake that I've given it, and I have it clipped off with the little tomato clips. Now, this is a very tall and bushy plant. It's very, very heavy. If you have it, you know, in whether you're growing it in the ground or in a pot, it's really in your best interest to stake something like this up so you can have it, because the wind will blow it down. As the flowers become spent, you will want to harvest them quickly, or prune them quickly, so that it encourages more growth. And you can see how many flowers I have available on this plant, which the more flowers, the more butterflies, the more things that come to stay, the more that it attracts. Now, something that I want to say here, a point that I want to make before I really forget, is this flower captures sunset in a way that is so incredible. it grabs every bit of light and it just glows. And I thought, wow, this is why they call it torch Mexican sunflower, because it is out here like a torch at night, and it's so incredible. And the way I have it positioned, it grabs the first light in the morning. So I look out, and there's all sorts of little critters out here early in the morning feasting from this. And you could see, I'll also insert the bumblebee back in here. The bees love it. They're having a feast in these flowers. So can you grow Mexican sunflower in a pot? Absolutely. This is nice and big. And some companion plants I have in here to keep the soil moist and to attract butterflies and larvae is parsley, dill, fennel. I have some nasturtium growing in here, and I did a nasturtium video for you. This is one of the options I threw in. This one is going to be peach melba. So that will trail down, and it'll be the beautiful peach melba colors trailing down. You can see the interest that the dill and the fennel gives the pot, as well as the parsley. Now, with all of the hummingbird or the monarch butterflies and the swallowtails that will come visit this, they'll lay eggs all over it, which they have been already. And when the larva hatches, they're going to need something to eat. So they really love dill and parsley. We have the flat leaf parsley in there. I have the curly moss parsley. These are all from Botanical Interest. The more I speak about seeds, it seems like I really love Botanical Interest and Baker Creek more than any other vendor. But that's what I have growing in here. So I've created, a little pollinator, hummingbird, butterfly garden in one pot. And so it serves so many purposes with companion plants placed at the bottom of the pot. Now, right now they look a little bit wilty because they do get thirsty in the morning. As soon as I give this a drink, I came out a half an hour ago, they were not this floppy. Anything that you grow in a pot is going to require water. Some people set up drip irrigation. I like to hand water because it gives me the opportunity to come out and see what everything needs and what's happening. Now, I'm not worried about this little bit of wilting because I'm going to give it a drink. But any potted plants, you will want to be, concerned about its water source and giving it a drink. So that's the only downside really to growing this size of a flower in a pot like this, is that it really needs a lot of water. Now, down in my wild meadow where I originally grew this flower, you can see that I have a few that came from the same batch of flowers that I started in the little 6-pack cells. They are taking much, much longer to grow. Planted them at the same time and everything. They were started as seed at the same time. They went into the soil at the same time. For some reason, they're just taking a lot longer. But in this area here, they'll have the opportunity to get nice and big, and they'll get nice and bushy. They can self-sow out here, and I'll still be able to harvest some seeds from those plants. It's just going to be easier for me to get to the seeds from the ones that are growing in the pots. But I have these dispersed all through the garden, as well as some seeds that I direct sowed at the same time that I planted the starter plant, just to make sure that we have things growing in a succession, in case the wind blows one down, or in case it just dies back because it's spent. You never really know what's going to happen. I've already started pruning my flowers. These are some dahlias, but this is the spent flower of the torch Mexican sunflower here. I don't know if there's any seed pods in here yet, but this head is, you can see these little spiky parts of the stamen next to the flower is where the seed is, inside of these little green spiky things. But this needs to dry out completely and become brown before you go in and try to get those seeds. Otherwise, the seed won't be viable for next year. So if you clip back your heads, you'll want to make sure that they are very, very dry before you try to take the seed out. And then the seed pops out very easily, and it's just a little tiny, tiny brown seed. It looks a little bit like a star anise seed. So now I have, I think, 2 or 3 giant bumblebees here feasting. These are like friendly bumblebees. I wouldn't offer them my finger, but they're just eating so happily. I don't bother them. They can come as often as they like, as many. This year it's attracting more bees than anything so far, which is just fine with me because everyone is working for a purpose. These little pollinators here are so amazing, and I love the sound of their buzzing. Something else this does attract that you should be aware of, it's kind of cool because you get to see it, but when you realize what's happening, it's not so cool. The goldfinches and the little tiny migratory finches love these flowers and the seeds that grow from the stamen. And one bird will land and it will decimate all of your flowers very, very, very rapidly. So it's a little frustrating when you look out and you say, oh my God, look at this yellow goldfinch that's out here. And by the way, the male is bright yellow. The female goldfinch is more of a little bit of a greenish color, darker, more ruddy in color. If you get goldfinches where you are, goldfinches are the state bird of New Jersey, so I'll tell you, they really do show up every year. And I always know when they're coming because my basil goes to seed. And then I say, oh, I'm going to see goldfinches. And don't you know, I always do. But last year I had an extra surprise for them, which was a ton of sunflower varieties. And they quickly landed and started to decimate my flowers. But it's okay, I just make sure that I plant extra and I enjoy seeing them. And there's some purpose, you know, for the flowers to nature, which is the main reason why we're growing everything, is to give it back to our pollinators. So anyway, you guys, Tithonia Mexican sunflower torch is a variety that I highly recommend. There is another variety that is more of a yellow color that you can find out there. I just love the bright orange though. This was really very striking to me, so I went with this one. And as I say in every video when I talk about flowers, who knows, I may add the yellow, and if I can find any other color, I will probably add it as soon as I can acquire the seed. But I haven't collected it yet, but should I go out and buy it, I will make sure that I let you know. Now, I do think that it's worth it for you to grow this flower for all the reasons that I talked about. It attracts your pollinators. It offers a feeding source to our migratory birds that really, really rely on natural sources of food and nectars to feed them. We want to give them the healthiest nectar options we can. They travel so far, and everything that they consume in their native land is not here in places in the Northeast where we just don't have tropical flowers unless we're buying them from the store. But you can grow them for a fraction of what you would pay in the store for one plant. You buy 1 pack of seeds, you'll have generations of flowers ahead of you from one purchase. So I want you to consider that as you're planting flowers, and something this easy and something that will bring you so much joy because it's going to feed the pollinators and it's going to give you just that visual joy of knowing that they came to your garden to feed, and they give you a little show at the same time. It's so worth it. This is really an easy plant to grow, you guys. So anyway, I hope that helped you and inspired you. And if you have any questions about growing torch Mexican sunflower, please post them below. We get back to everybody. Thanks for your time, everyone. Hope to see you in the next video.